my pros and wherever we're going, you know we own it. All I fucking know is I got my pros and wherever we're going, I put my pros before.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to get into what if Naruto was Madara's student. If you like this, please like and subscribe. With that out the way, let's get into it. The disciples past, a father's love. Naruto was standing before a mirror in his hotel room preparing for his date with the Mizukage. He was lying if he said he was nervous. He then scowled. He had faced multiple opponents at once without a shred of fear, and yet when he thought about his evening with the Auburn beauty, this anxious feeling swept over him. What he was feeling at the moment, anxiousness, it was to him, nauseating. He had no idea how to act on such evenings. His female interaction was not the greatest in the world, he didn't know the correct etiquette or how to give a woman a good time. And there was no point in asking Zetsu because the plant man was basically an evil clone in a cliché movie. When he tried to remember what his past self was like when it came to women, all he could see was the same result, a fist. Luckily he had the basic sense to dress up in nice clothes. Currently he was wearing a black business jacket with a white collared shirt, black slacks, nice shoes, a yellow tie that matched his hair, and stylish leather gloves. His usually spiky hair was as it is, the strands framed his face and his ponytail fell between his shoulder blades. He went out of his way to buy a bouquet of plum blossoms because he thought it would be nice to buy flowers for a woman since Konan liked flowers. She even had one in her hair, which led Naruto to believe that women liked flowers. The flower lady blushed when she saw his face. He checked himself in the mirror again, making sure nothing was wrong or out of place. He then remembered his conversation with Obito and how in 6 months they would battle it out to the death because Obito threatened his plans, and he also impersonated the real Madara, something which enraged Naruto, and he knew why. Madara himself called Obito a copycat who could never measure up to a name that overweighed his. But Naruto knew better. You didn't claim to be Madara Uchiha without immense power to back it up. Naruto knew that Obito had been emulating Madara even since he saw Rin die, and if so, then Obito is not someone Naruto should take lightly. He needed to train and fast while also develop his jutsu arsenal, and that ability, he had almost mastered it, he just needed more time to develop them more. And a psychological case like Obito's didn't happen to anybody, it only happened to an Uchiha who had lost something they loved and replaced it with hatred. It was the sickness of the Uchiha, also known as the curse of hatred. Naruto also had to find a way to turn Obito's pawns against him, but how was the question? If Naruto had Koda Amatsukami of Shisui Uchiha's main Jikyo, then coercing them to his side would be easy. He had hoped to get Konan on his side, but other matters were taking his attention away. But right now Naruto had to focus on his date with the Mizukage. When he thought of the auburn-haired wonder, he had a shaking feeling in his hand. He knew it wasn't fear, so what was it? Konan had told him earlier that the missions in the Land of Water were not over. So he assumed he had another mission after his date. Naruto sighed. He wouldn't turn off his Sharingan for the date because he didn't wish to see what his eyes were like behind the red. Were they pitch black and empty like Madara's, or were they the ocean blue of his original pair shining with color? He didn't know which one, black or blue, and he didn't want to find out. Flashback. Naruto had just recently acquired the eternal Mangekyo from his teacher Madara. Normally rehabilitation was needed to allow the body to become adjusted to the eyes, but because of Naruto's incredible healing abilities he didn't need to wait that long to use his new eyes. He was now training his wind affinity with 1,000 clones alongside him, trying to cut the leaves between their palms. It was tasking, but Naruto knew that it was all worth it in the end. Each day he would focus on one of his 3 affinities, and today was wind and tomorrow would be lightning followed by fire. Then something struck Naruto that he had thought about recently. The eyes in his sockets, who did they belong to originally? The original stopped what he was doing and walked up to the root-like throne that Madara was sitting on. The ancient Uchiha looked up when he sensed his apprentice standing before Sharingan, eyes peering into his soul. "Do you require something of need, my young student?" wheezed Madara. Madara was really the decrepit old man Naruto thought he would be. "These eyes, who did they belong to?" asked Naruto in his emotionless voice. Madara raised his eyebrow at the blonde, but he was curious and his clones were training, so it wouldn't hurt to tell him. "Those are my eyes," spoke Madara. Naruto had a confused expression. "You said that you gave your eyes to another, so whose are these?" asked Naruto again. Those are my eyes. The ones that I transplanted into Nagato were originally my brother's, Izuna. The ones that are in your sockets were mine before Izuna forced me to take his, uttered Madara. But I thought you went blind. Before Izuna gave you his eyes, questioned Naruto. I never went blind. That was just a rumor within the clan after the village was created, and many Uchiha shunned believing that I was a warmonger intent on renewing our battles with the Senju, continued Madara. Madara gripped his scythe tightly in anger. They called him, the person that stole his brother's eyes. Tobirama, the future Nidaime Hokage, was distrustful of the Uchiha, mainly of me. I was able to listen in on a conversation between Hashirama and Tobirama about the standing of the Uchiha within the village. Hashirama at the time wanted me to become the Hokage and lead the village as a symbol, and also proving to the village that I was not what the people believed I was. This news made Naruto gasp. The BlackzyAMV actually wanted Madara to be Hokage. However, because the village was a democracy at the time, the people chose to make Hashirama the Hokage, and when Tobirama became Hokage, he created the military police force and gave it the Uchiha clan as a sign of faith and trust. But in actuality, this was a way to focus any of the Uchiha's bitterness towards the Senju and focus it in a positive way. But the police were only a temporary solution where my fellow clan members believed that the villagers and the Hokage were ostracizing the Uchiha and taking away any power that the clan had over the village, spoke Madara as he talked about his history and the Uchiha clan. Interesting, but you must have been forced to use the Mangekyo, so therefore you had suffered damage to your eyes, said Naruto neutrally. Yes, and the eyes in your sockets aren't damaged because of the eternal Mangekyo, informed Madara. Naruto raised his eyebrow in curiosity. When someone transplants the eyes of someone closely related to a Mangekyo user into another Mangekyo user, you create the eternal and any damage to the eyes is repaired, explained Madara. Wait, you said closely related eyes can grant you the eternal, so how can I use the eternal when I'm not even related to you? Queried Naruto emotionlessly. You have the eternal because of the blood transfusion I gave you, and maybe the Kyuubi's healing factor helped a little. You can access the eternal because in a way, you are now related to me thanks to my blood running throughout your body, clarified Madara. Naruto nodded his head in understanding. Madara then started having another coughing fit, which was a common sight for the blonde. Get back to your training, ordered Madara hoarsely. Naruto did as commanded and went back to his clones who were trying to cut the leaves in their palms. Flashback end. Naruto was still thinking over his eyes. His regenerative abilities could have allowed Naruto's natural eye color to return other than having coal black like Madara's. He then decided that it wasn't important, his eyes were powerful and nothing could change that. The blonde was about to leave for his date when Zetsu materialized right before him. Naruto was secretly pleased that Konan was off doing her own thing, so now he could talk to Zetsu in private. What is it, Zetsu? Sighed Naruto. The Sharingan wielder had just noticed that Zetsu was carrying 2 brown packages wrapped in twine. Naruto subconsciously raised his right eyebrow at the plant man. I have gifts for you, said the white half merrily. The black half groaned at his other half's behavior. Why did you buy me gifts? Hissed Naruto, getting slightly angry. White Zetsu usually brought him crappy items such as smelly cheese and old socks. The Uzumaki was unsure if Zetsu was being serious or liked joking around with Naruto, which later the blonde would threaten to kill Zetsu if he didn't stop being an idiot and kept on buying him shitty presents. Zetsu handed Naruto the first package and Naruto put down the flowers he was holding and unwrapped the package. Naruto unwrapped the package and was met with a box. Opening the box, Naruto saw and beheld a tanto, perfectly crafted and well-created tanto. Naruto was taken back by the weapon in the box. His version of surprise was merely a raised eyebrow. He took the tanto out of his hand and inspected the sheath that was connected to the blade. The sheath was a royal red in color and had black cherry blossoms that dotted the sheath. Naruto grabbed the hilt of the short blade and noted that it lacked a guard like his katana, and also had a long light blue 11.5-inch rope on the end of the hilt. Naruto unsheathed the blade and held it in his right hand. The blade was silvery blue and the light seemed to shine off it like a mirror, like his own katana. Naruto's lips twitched for half a second. This was the best gift, that wasn't a piece of crap, that he could get from Zetsu. However, Zetsu didn't see the twitching of Naruto's lips. Naruto sheathed the tanto and tucked into his jacket's inner pocket. Why would you get me this gift, Zetsu? Asked Naruto strangely. Zetsu smirked at his master. It's your first date, and I believed it was a special occasion, said Zetsu honestly. Technically, White Zetsu wanted to give Naruto a signed copy of Ika Ika Paradise, but Black Zetsu said it was trash and Naruto would actually, kill him if they were to get it. Zetsu handed the second package to Naruto. Like before, Naruto unwrapped it, but this time it wasn't a weapon. It was a mask. The mask looked like what could be best described as a menacing skull. It was white on the right side of the mask and had 10 red stripes on the left side, almost completely covering the left side of the mask. It also had sharp teeth and a pointed chin with narrow eye holes. Naruto narrowed his eyes in suspicion. He didn't know how to feel. He had to admit that the mask was elegantly designed, but why a mask in the first place? It felt like he was copying Obito, someone he hoped to kill. "Why would you get me this, Zetsu?" questioned Naruto neutrally. The blonde didn't know how to feel. He liked the mask, but the purpose of it was clouded. Black Zetsu decided to answer. "After your recent escapades in Konoha, if it wasn't for your hood obscuring your enemies' views of your face, they would have discovered your identity, or they would think you were the resurrected Yondaime. That mask is infused with chakra, so even for someone with the Byakugan they will be unable to see your face from all the chakra obscuring their vision," explained Zetsu. Naruto was surprised that the mask would perfectly hide his identity. "Understand, Zetsu, I will only wear this when around Konoha shinobi or anybody associated with Konoha. Even though they believe Naruto Uzumaki is dead, the fact that they can't learn my plans or who I am until the plan commences and the infinite Tsukuyomi is launched." Zetsu nodded at Naruto's words. Naruto rolled up his jacket's left sleeve, revealing sealing tattoos on his wrists. He sealed the mask into the tattoo and rolled down the sleeve. Naruto picked up his bouquet of plum blossoms and left the hotel room he was staying in, ready for his dinner with the Mizukage. In the land of Earth, specifically Iwagakure, Raya Tenbin no Onaki of both scales, the third Tsuchikage was fuming with rage. His operation to weaken the land of water and Kirigakure had failed. He knew he shouldn't have hired those Taki-nins. Trusting a weaker shinobi village was incredibly stupid. No wonder they were weaker than the 5 great nations. The operation had taken months of planning and preparation. He even sent some of his best jonins to make sure nothing jeopardized the plan, but instead, with all of his forces slaughtered and the mission resulted in failure. Now Kiri had all those weapons and supplies along with all the funds they happened to have with them to establish a base camp and hire workers. And something infuriated him further. Kiri returned all of their corpses that were mostly intact, and now his medical officers were going over autopsies of the corpses. He needed to find out who was responsible for all the saddened families in Iwagakure that had lost their loved ones in the land of water. Then one of his assistants walked through the door with news on the bodies. "Tsuchikage-sama, we have just recently finished the autopsy on the IWA shinobis stationed within the land of water. Although what we have found was nothing really urgent, one body has shocked the medical officers and it requires your eyes," said the assistant. "Very well, go and tell the medics that I will be arriving at the hospital shortly." Onaki then rubbed his back in annoyance. He really was an old geezer, according to Kuratsuki. When Onaki made it to the hospital, he was greeted to the sight of his 2 medics standing over the body of one of his most trusted IWA shinobi. He noticed that his shinobi had a gaping hole in his chest and someone had broken through his ribcage. "Thank you for coming, Tsuchikage-sama," said one of the medics, and Onaki nodded at the medic. "Cause of death?" asked the old cage. "That's the most gruesome thing about this body, sir," said the other medic. Onaki raised his eyebrow and his mouth dropped a bit. "Cause of death, numerous lacerations to the heart which lead to blood loss and later death," informed the medics. Onaki sighed. This really wasn't his kind of day. "And yet there's more, Tsuchikage-sama." The medics lit up a light above the body and positioned it over the hole in the shinobi's chest. Onaki used his flying jutsu to get a better look. He noticed that the medics had removed the heart, but there was something else in the chest. In big bold letters Onaki could make out a few words written on one of the ribs. Onaki's face puffed and went red in anger. He stormed out of the hospital, leaving 2 very startled medics behind. The inscription on the rib was plain as day, as even a child could read it. "With regards, from Ryu Yokaze," was all it said. Naruto must have apparently written that with wind chakra when he was crushing the shinobi's heart. That poor shinobi. Naruto was making his way to the Terumi mansion where he would meet the Mizukage for his date. However, the date was not the thing that was preoccupying his mind. He had another night terror. It was different and yet similar to the one he had a few nights ago. But he brushed off the thoughts from his mind. However, he was nervous. This would be the first time he would truly interact with a female who wasn't Konan. He then remembered one of the lessons Madara told him. Flashback. Naruto was currently training with his new katana that Zetsu had got him when he told his teacher that he was interested in Kenjutsu. Currently Naruto was 14 and his body was quite lean and rippled with muscle. The blonde was now testing his skills against multiple Zetsus and his own Kage Bun's hints. Madara was just watching with a calculating eye. He was currently going over what else he should teach Naruto. The blonde had already finished elemental manipulation and shape transformation. So what now? Then it came to him, there will be times when Naruto would have to interact with the females of his species. Naruto, croaked Madara. Naruto stopped what he was doing and walked up to his sensei. What is it, old goat? Said Naruto emotionlessly. A tick mark appeared on Madara's forehead. He couldn't get his student to stop calling him that disrespectful nickname. But back to the reason Madara called Naruto over. Naruto, there will come a time when you will be subjected to the advances of women when you leave the hovel, said Madara. Naruto raised his eyebrow. Since, in Zetsu's opinion, you are handsome and attractive, many kunoichi will use their sexuality to seduce and maybe assassinate you. I have known many Uchiha who have died from having their throats slit in their sleep by kunoichi spies, so make cage buns hins and study all you can on resisting the temptation of the kunoichi. But sensei, it might be impossible to fully control my perverted urges, muttered Naruto. While it is true that you can't fully control it, you can train yourself to resist it, said Madara. This conversation is becoming really awkward, old goat, spoke Naruto cautiously. Madara sighed at his student and he can't fault him, it was awkward for him as well. Zetsu, yelled Madara, and a few seconds later the plant appeared. Gather books on women and how to stave off the seduction of kunoichi, said Madara awkwardly. Naruto sighed, the old goat was right, this would be extremely awkward. Flashback end. Naruto then found himself standing before the Terumi mansion. It was an extravagant Japanese mansion that had blue blossoms on the roof. Guarding the mansion was a tall wall that was sure to be guarded by Umbu and a double door blocking the person from entering. Naruto walked through the double door, believing Mei had already told her Umbu that his presence was expected within the mansion's grounds. Not far away a team of Umbu were watching Naruto enter the Mizukage's mansion. This is Duck to Lobster, target, Dragon has entered the mansion, over, said the Umbu agent Duck who wore a duck mask. Copy Duck, this is Frog, confirm status on the target, Water Maiden, over, said Frog who wore a frog mask. Frog, Duck, this is Lobster, status on target, Water Maiden is currently dash, but before Lobster could finish his update he was propelled backwards by a giant perverted nosebleed. Behind his mask was currently a perverted grin and some drool on his left lip. Lobster, come in Lobster, shit we have a man down, yelled Duck. Going in to assist Lobster, over, shouted Duck into his communication device. No, we must complete our mission, no matter the cost, over, said Frog in a cliched overdramatic voice. Too late, I'm at Lobster's position, over, said Duck over the radio. Fine, confirm status on Water Maiden, over, but Frog's message didn't get through to Duck. You know this is a nice view of dash dot, but Duck was also launched back by a perverted nosebleed where he landed next to Lobster where he also sported a perverted grin. Duck. Come in Duck. Do you okay? Damn it, we've lost another one. Going over to Duck's and Lobster's last position, yelled Frog to no one since there was only 3 of them. When he made it over to the down Umbu agents he knew they needed to get to the hospital to replace all their lost blood. But before he did that he retraced the 2 blood trails left behind by the Umbu agents. But what he saw when he made it to the beginning of the trail also gave him a nosebleed where he flew even farther than his 2 fellow operatives. The cause of their nosebleeds. Mei Terumi was currently standing before a mirror, naked, trying to decide on which dress she would wear for her date with Ryu. She was nervous and anxious. She had never been on a romantic date in a long time and usually they were a disaster, because either the man she was with would get a perverted nosebleed and be taken to the hospital or she would make an idiot of herself by somehow blowing up their food or any other thing that was around her at the time. She decided to take Ryu out for dinner, because she can't cook. Whenever she tried she would somehow burn the water, her oven would combust, her food that was in the refrigerator would freeze solid and would be inedible, and any food she was able to successfully create turned out to be inedible and gave whoever ate the food poisoning. She couldn't decide on a certain dress. There was an sapphire blue dress, her favorite color, with one strap with a flower on the strap and a cut down the right side showing off some leg which were smooth and firm. An emerald green dress that matched her eyes which was strapless and flowing but lacked the cut down the leg. Ultimately deciding on the blue dress, she had just noticed that she lacked any decency so quickly. Doing that, she put on a pair of black laced panties and then she put on her dress that hugged her figure nicely and pushed her breasts together making them even more perky. She heard a knock at her door which her heart jumped in her chest at the surprise sound. She smoothed out her dress ready to meet Ryu. She opened her door and blushed at what she saw. Ryu was standing there in an extremely nice suit with a yellow tie and black gloves. He was holding a bouquet of plum blossoms and he still had his Sharingan active. Breaking herself from her stupor, Mei started a conversation. "You clean up nicely, Ryu-kun, quite handsome," complimented Mei. Naruto turned his crimson eyes upon her and he tried his hardest to ward off the desire coursing through him, and he remembered Madara's lessons well, but this woman was making him disregard all those lessons and was slowly breaking his will with the sexy dress she had. And he could smell her perfume, she smelled like the ocean. Catching up with reality, Ryu handed the flowers to Mei and both went on their way to the restaurant Mei had made reservations with. Oniki had a headache. Why? Because most of his top jonin were killed by the Kuro Ryu, Black Dragon, the man that had made a mockery of the Leaf Village. If it wasn't for the circumstances right now, he would love nothing more than to laugh at Konoha. Oniki believed that Yosuke was nothing more than a brat who gets involved with business not his own, and his rising fame and his exploits were already traveling to the rest of the nations. When Kumo hears of Iwa's failure, it will be a blow to their pride and power. His assistant walked in carrying a stack of paperwork. "Yuzu," said Oniki to his assistant. "Yes, Tsuchikage-sama," said Yuzu. "Put a new page in the bingo book for Ryu Yosuke and all information that Konoha and Iwa have on the man," commanded Oniki. The Tsuchikage's assistant nodded and left to fill in a new page in the bingo book. Oniki sighed. He would now have to tell the victims' families about their deaths at the hand of the Yosuke no Ryu, Dragon of the Night Wind. At Myabokuzen, the elder Toad Sage was in deep thought. He wanted to tell Jiraiya that Naruto was alive and traveling the world. But he also didn't want to tell Jiraiya that Naruto was the one with eyes like the abyss, for it may change the prophecy he saw in his vision 2 years ago. "Lord Elder," said a voice. The old toad opened his eyes and saw Fukazaku hopping up to him. "Lord Elder, should we tell Jiraiya-chan that Naruto is alive and that he is connected to the prophecy you saw 2 years ago?" said Fukazaku. The elder sighed. For 2 years he had kept Naruto's current status only among the other 2 Myabokuzen sages. "That's the problem, Fukazaku. I cannot decide whether to tell Jiraiya about Naruto. I have already lied to him once when I said that I didn't know who the person that would control the great beast was. I don't wish to lie to him again, and news like this would most likely cause him great rage or sorrow. Rage because we withheld the information of his godson being alive, or sorrow knowing that Naruto has not returned to his home and refuses to return," said the toad tiredly. "But something is happening to Naruto. I saw it, in another vision of mine. He is haunted by dreams and nightmares of his past and future self," said the elder toad sage. "What are you talking about, honorable elder?" asked Fukazaku. "There are 2 paths that are available to the Maelstrom. One path is where he returns to Konoha and lives out his life in happiness. The other path is much different, where he will continue walking the path but never truly stopping, not until he completes what he originally set out to do. However, right now he is trying to discover who he is, although which path he takes is unknown at this time," said the sage. "We will not tell Jiraiya. Naruto's status and goal is something he must discover on his own," said the sage, and Fukazaku bowed his head in uneasy agreement. Speaking of Jiraiya, he was currently walking on a road within the land of fire. Along with him was Kano Amaru Sarutobi, the late Sandaime Hokage's grandson. Kano Amaru was like a clone of Naruto, personality-wise. He was loud and boisterous and was quite hyper. And he called Jiraiya Ero-sensei instead of Ero-senin that Naruto used to call him. The Toad Sage was still grieving over the loss of his godson, the only family he had left, and he had failed also. He was never there for Naruto when he was growing up. Not until he became a genin did he meet him for the first time. But he had also failed Minato and Kushina. The least he could have done is visit the blonde from time to time. But he didn't. He was too busy peeking on women and writing his perverted books. Kano Amaru was walking alongside his new sensei, and the Toad Senin was surprisingly a better teacher than Ebisu. The young Sarutobi was now 11, and according to Jiraiya his power was comparable to that of a mid to high level genin. The young boy was now currently engrossed in reading Konoha's latest bingo book, but there was one entry that seemed to catch his eye. "Ryu Yosuke," whispered Kano Amaru. "History-wise there wasn't much on the guy. It's as if he fell out of the sky, like a stranger in a strange land." He then scrutinized the man's picture. You couldn't see his face much because it was covered by a hood, but you were able to make out a lower jaw and some hair. He noted that the hair was golden blonde like his. There were a few shinobi who also had Naruto's hair color or similar hair, such as Deidara, Mado Banba, the Mad Bomber. "Hey Ero-sensei, who's Ryu Yosuke?" asked Kano Amaru with a curious pout. Jiraiya looked to his side to see Konohamaru reading a bingo book, and he was looking at the page of the Kuro Ryu. I don't know, kid, everything about the Yokaze no Ryu, Dragon of the Night Wind, is a mystery. I have heard rumors among my contacts saying that Yokaze has joined the Akatsuki, spoke Jiraiya. Really? Asked an amazed Konohamaru. It's just a rumor at the moment, but still, should you ever cross paths with Yokaze without me, run, said Jiraiya cautiously. Come on, we can take him, Naruto. Nii-san would never run from a fight. When the Sarutobi spoke that name, a flash of guilt appeared on Jiraiya's face. Kid, this guy was able to infiltrate one of the most well-guarded villages in the shinobi world, and he was able to kill at least a dozen Umbu and critically injure Kakashi at the same time, and he disappeared as if he never existed. So tell me, when someone like you, who isn't even a genin, let alone not even a jonin in power, could take on an S-ranked criminal such as Ryu Yokaze, berated Jiraiya. Konohamaru pouted in annoyance because what his sensei was saying happened to be true. For half an hour both Jiraiya and Konohamaru continued to walk on the road. But Konohamaru decided to voice something that had been bothering him for years. Why was Naruto Nii-san hated? Everywhere we walked, there were people who would openly glare at him and say terrible things as well, asked Konohamaru out of the blue. Jiraiya sighed. There was no point in keeping Naruto's Jinchuriki status a secret. Tsunade was planning on telling the village soon, mainly the younger generation, and about time too. As you know, Konohamaru, the most powerful of the Biju, the Kyuubi no Yoko, attacked the village 15 years ago. They say in the academy that the Yondaime killed it, but that's not true. To kill a Biju is impossible. They are built up masses of chakra, and if you did kill one, their chakra would just disperse and reform later. Since the Yondaime couldn't kill the Kyuubi, he instead did the next best thing, seal it into a person. Preferable a newborn baby, explained Jiraiya, looking down on the ground. Konohamaru widened his eyes in surprise. Quickly figuring out that Naruto was the baby that the Yondaime sealed the Kyuubi into as a vessel. But why would the Yondaime seal the Kyuubi into Naruto? Was it because he was an orphan? Questioned Konohamaru. Jiraiya frowned at the question. After the people in the village had calmed down about Naruto's death, Tsunade would reveal his full heritage to everyone. The Yondaime was far too noble a person to ask someone to give up their child, so instead he sealed the fox into his own son. Konohamaru stopped his trek and stared at Jiraiya, who had also stopped walking, with a gaping jaw, which had hit the floor. Quickly getting over his stupor, Konohamaru asked. What? But Ero-sensei, if Naruto was the son of the Yondaime, why did everyone in the village treat him like crap when his father was a hero? Yelled Konohamaru. Jiraiya frowned even more when he heard the Sarutobi's comment. During the Third War, Minato was the one that basically spared us from slaughter from IWA, and they were among his greatest enemies. After his death, if IWA or Kumo were to find out that Minato had a son, then they would have stopped at nothing to kill Naruto in revenge. So your grandfather gave him his mother's last name to fool everyone in the village and others, and it worked perfectly. And also I was Naruto's godfather, said Jiraiya guiltily, but he didn't register the foot that was aimed at his family jewels until they hit their mark. Jiraiya was on the ground clutching his balls. That kick was harder than he thought. Why were you never there for him? Screamed Konohamaru. Jiraiya picked himself off the ground and looked Konohamaru straight in the eye. After the Kyuubi attacked, I had to reconnect with my spy network. I had to know if the other nations would attack the village. Thankfully they still believed that Konoha was strong, and with our alliance with Suna it made them hesitant to attack. Because of my work I was unable to meet Naruto or even see him, and I know that's another failure I can add on to the list, said Jiraiya sadly. Does he have any other family? Asked Konohamaru. Jiraiya thought about the question and the answer came to him. Only one, spoke Jiraiya. And with that said, both teacher and student kept walking onwards. Naruto was walking through Kiri with Mei latched to his left arm with her right and holding the bouquet in her left. This was a new experience for him, for he had never been on a date before. Currently he was chanting stupid within his mind. He knew this was a bad idea, but how could he reject the Mizukage? Within a few minutes the duo found themselves at their reserved restaurant. The stars in the mist, the best Kiri had to offer in fine dining and comfortability. A waiter working at the restaurant guided them to their tables. They ordered wine and their food. Naruto ordered a bowl of miso ramen with a side of red bean soup, while Mei was having a bowl of donbari. So Ryu-kun, I have been meaning to ask, who was it that trained you in shinobi arts? Because I'm doubtful that you would have become a S-ranked shinobi without some help, said Mei with a smile. Ryu stared at her with his emotionless gaze. deciding that refusing would be rude and she would only pester him more for the information if he did. I was trained for 2 years of my life by someone important to me. He taught me everything I knew about being a shinobi and he was the only person that ever really acknowledged me, said Naruto blankly. Mei's smile dropped a bit but it was still there. The number of people who actually smiled at me for who I was can be counted on my hand and he was among the few. You still didn't answer me question, said Mei as she bit her fingernail. Who trained you to be a shinobi? Mei asked again. Naruto looked down into his ramen bowl and found his answer. My father. Flashback. Naruto was currently training in taijutsu, trying to perfect the style that Madara had taught him. The blonde Uzumaki was using wooden training dummies that would move around at irregular intervals like a factory line. The dummies were made by the White Zetsu's clones with their wood release. Also add on to the fact that the wood had revolving arm and leg extensions, forcing Naruto to block some of the blows whenever he would hit one. The purpose of this training? To break the logs with his bare fists and to adapt to situations where he would face more than one opponent. He hit a wooden target with the back end of his fist, utterly shattering the wood. He jabbed another, ending in the same result. However, among the targets were White Zetsu who were holding kunaus. The clones were trying to remain hidden so to catch the blonde off guard while he was dealing with the moving wooden targets. Madara knew that target dummies could only do so much. They could hit you, but could they hit you back? Naruto did a roundhouse kick that shattered yet another log. One of the Zetsu lunged at him with a kunao, but Naruto did a spinning tornado that impacted against the clone's jaw, effectively breaking its jaw and broke its neck at the same time from the force of the impact. Before the Zetsu could hit the ground, Naruto took its kunao and stabbed another in the mouth on the blonde's side, killing it instantly. He took out the kunao and threw it at another Zetsu, where the knife flew past the wooden dummies with accurate precision and drived into the eye of the Zetsu, also killing it. Naruto went back to shattering the dummies with his fists and feet. As he was destroying his targets, he took note of the number of Zetsu hiding within the moving targets. His Sharingan could count at least 27. Naruto performed a two-fisted punch against a target, breaking the target into splinters and didn't have much time to narrowly duck a sword swing from a Zetsu. Naruto steadied himself and with his Sharingan scanned his targets and enemies. The Zetsu attacked again with a downward slash and Naruto was able to catch the blade in between his palms and in a swift motion disarmed the Zetsu by breaking its arm and smashing his foot against its chest and slashed the clone with the katana. Naruto dropped the bladed weapon on the ground and broke another target with his elbow. Naruto slammed his foot against another target, fracturing it, and finally finished off with another tornado kick that destroyed the target. One Zetsu came up behind Naruto intending to cut him with his kunao. Naruto easily sidestepped the slash, but he received a shallow cut on his cheek which bled a little. Without showing emotion, Naruto viscously caught the Zetsu's arm, put him into an arm lock, and with some effort slammed the clone's face into the concrete-like ground where spiderweb-like cracks appeared. Knowing that Zetsu wasn't dead, Naruto picked up the clone of the first Hokage and started demolishing the moving wooden targets with the Zetsu's face. If the clone's face wasn't already messed by being smashed into the ground, the result from being used a human weapon was different. The clone had lost most of its teeth and its nose was disfigured, and if Zetsu had any blood it would be bleeding. Also there were large splinters and fracture of wood embedded deeply into the Zetsu's face. Naruto, after seeing that the Zetsu was still alive, dropped it on the ground and broke its neck with his foot. And then went back to destroying the wooden dummies that he was skillfully dodging the entire time. One person was watching the brutality that the Uzumaki heir was reaping with a satisfied smirk. And that was the man that breathed life into him. Madara Uchiha was watching his apprentice demolishing everything in his path with ease and precision. This was a training method was designed by the old Uchiha to improve Naruto's dexterity and the force and power of his taijutsu. However, Madara was able to note that he could see some flaws with Naruto's taijutsu. He pivoted his punches too much and his stances were too rigid, which allowed him to become unbalanced and easy for an enemy to exploit to their advantage. Your stances are too rigid, you have to let them flow like water, barked Madara hoarsely. Naruto didn't seem to register what he said, but Madara knew that he heard him. He lived with the boy, sharing the dark hovel they were in for a year, and Madara could tell when Naruto was listening or not. But Madara also noted how brutal Naruto could be in combat, such as when he used the Zetsu's face as an improvised weapon while it was still attached to the body. And using the kunao to stab the Zetsu in the mouth and piercing another one in the eye. The Uchiha knew that Naruto didn't like nor disliked killing, he was content with it. But sometimes when Naruto was training with the Zetsus, Madara could glimpse a small smirk of joy, but it was a sickly smirk that someone took pleasure from inflicting pain. Naruto was currently enjoying himself inflicting harm on the Zetsus, whether by breaking their bones, using sharp wood pieces and gutting them with it, or just by simply watching fall the ground. But he was happy because whenever he would see a Zetsu he would picture the face of someone in Konoha who had mistreated him. He saw various faces of his former friends and some people who he used to consider his family. But when the face of the Yondaime appeared he lost all sense and ruthlessly slaughtered the Zetsu and kept breaking the targets even more. A moving, thick, wooden target was nearing him, but the image of his father was standing there smiling kindly at him popped up, and that sparked something within Naruto, something dark. He cocked his right fist back and crushed the wooden dummy from the impact of his punch. However, he overexerted the amount of power he put into the punch intended for the target, that his arm broke in 3 places, 2 on his forearm and 1 in his humerus bone. He fell to his knees in pain while he was cradling his right arm, his breath was hitched and there were beads of sweat rolling of his brow. Madara, seeing that his apprentice was wounded and hurt, got up off his root-like throne and hurried over to his disciple as fast as his withered legs could carry him. When he made it over to his student he stopped the training and ordered the Zetsus to get bandages and splints. Madara brought Naruto over to his bed, Naruto's bed, and laid him down. Madara knew limited medical ninjutsu and he knew how to perform surgical procedures, given how he transplanted his brother's eyes into another. A few white Zetsus returned with bandages and splints. Madara checked over the places that were broken. One was near the wrist, the other near the elbow, and the one located on the humerus was directly in the middle. All the while Naruto was grimacing in agony, he gritted his teeth and tightened his left fist, since he couldn't move his right hand or arm. Madara glanced at his student, and when the boy showed signs of his pain, a wretched feeling would wash over Madara. He hadn't felt that feeling in a long time, not since Izuna. Madara knew that Naruto's healing factor would greatly reduce the amount of time the recuperation would require, but given the extent of the injuries it would take some time to heal. Madara wrapped the splints around the broken areas and bandaged them up. "You have to be more careful, watch how much power you exert in your punches and kicks. If you keep doing that you just end up in this scenario," said Madara. But Naruto's hair overshadowed his eyes. Madara gazed at Naruto again, while he was tying a sling around his right arm. Madara could feel that something was bothering Naruto. He could see some stray tears that were prickling at the corner of his eyes but refused to fall. Madara then figured out what was wrong. Anger leads to sorrow. Madara was entirely aware of what happened to Naruto before the boy became his student. He was treated as if he didn't exist, like he was a nobody. Some vessels to the beasts were at least hated but the existence acknowledged. But Naruto was a person who wasn't even there. And people would look through him and not at him. Like an apparition. Such anger built up over time was like holding back an explosion. It would come out at some point. "Let it out," whispered the Uchiha. Naruto looked up at his sensei, and ever since knowing the old goat, Naruto knew that he would never say such a thing or act so. Old man understood him perfectly, and he understood what he was feeling right now. The tears that were being held back by the wall that was eyelids flew out like a waterfall. So Naruto cried, letting out all his anguish and misery that the villagers inflicted on him. No other vessel, a jailer to a beast, was treated like he was. He leaned forward and rested his face on the old man's shoulder. But surprisingly Madara didn't push him away, instead he embraced him in a hug, the most genuine hug the blonde Sharingan wielder had experienced. Somehow Naruto could feel love within this hug coming from such a hateful person. I guess it gave him a new perspective. That even the most hateful person has some shred of love in their being. Madara stared down at the mop of blonde hair. He remembered a time when Izuna was faced with something similar after the deaths of his other brothers. Madara became a father figure to Izuna rather than a brother because their own father was too busy with the missions the Uchiha received, and he promised long ago that he would protect Izuna from anything. However, he failed and Izuna died. He broke his promise. But now when he looked at Naruto he would see the face of his beloved brother. Then he discovered what that feeling towards Naruto is fatherly love. Madara didn't deny that he cared for Naruto on some level. "The boy grew on you. I wonder if this is what it feels like to have a son. I never had any children, so I don't know what it's like to be a father, so this is quite the new but happy experience. You know I will not be with you forever, and if so I will protect you until I pass, like my brother," Naruto promised Madara silently as he tightened his embrace on Naruto. He was going to make the Uzumaki as strong as possible within the limited amount of time they had. This strange feeling, this love, he hadn't felt it since Izuna nor for any other person. While Madara was thinking that, our favorite blonde was thinking something else. Is this what it feels like to have a father and it feels warm?" lamented Naruto. Despite how Madara and him would argue about which dish of ramen is better than the other or the color orange is or isn't a stupid color. He truly cared for the old goat. Flashback end. Naruto then found himself back in the restaurant with Mei. Despite not showing it, Naruto was truly sad that his sensei was gone. So heard Ryu. Mei was there smiling at him. "What was your father's name?" asked Mei, generally curious because if Ryu was an S-ranked ninja that meant his father was powerful or was a hell of a great teacher. "His name," said Naruto neutrally, but you could detect a hint of sadness in his voice. He had to think of a name quickly, but which one would be good? "His name was Hidora Yokais." "Hidora, Hydra, sounds like a strong name," commented Mei. "Wait, you said was?" "Yeah, he died about a year ago," said Naruto emotionlessly. "You're probably also wondering why I have the Sharingan as well?" "Correct," queried Naruto. To which Mei nodded. Deciding to fabricate a lie, Naruto did just that. "I don't know why I have the Sharingan. I questioned my father about it, but he didn't tell me anything. But can we please stop talking about my past? It's quite uncomfortable and it brings back bad memories," commented Ryu. "Just one more question," stated Mei as she bit her nail seductively. A few minutes passed and yet Ryu didn't want to give in to the Auburn woman's demands. "Fine," said Naruto dejectedly. "What was your mother's name?" asked Mei carefully, as she knew his mother was a touchy subject. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the question. He didn't know how to feel about his mother. Did she love him? Did she hate him like all the rest? "Her name was Kushina Yokais. She died the day I was born, but not from childbirth," said Naruto agitatedly. "I answered your question. I am not required to answer any more," spoke Naruto. Mei sighed. She knew that was all she could get from the man. For the rest of the evening the two cage-level shinobi talked and ate. Mei would throw a few flirts here and there and Naruto would take them as he usually did, emotionlessly. After the dinner Mei said goodbye, left Ryu alone, who ventured back to his hotel room. It was cold, like a hungering winter. Chilling wasn't the word to describe the cold atmosphere. Everything was covered in a thick layer of ice. The trees, the leaves, even the flowers were entombed in a wasteland of frozen water. The wind howled like wolves and the gales were sharp enough to cut and freeze the blood in your veins. A black-clad man was standing in the middle of the desolation. The winds were cutting his skin and the frost was biting his muscles. But he was unaffected by the icy touch of the rime. His golden locks flayed in the gnawing wind as he stood stalwartly against the eerie onslaught of the icy tract. Instead of the dazzling sight of snow he faced a slaying blizzard. But he stood against the cold and just surveyed his surroundings. From the branches of the trees he could icicles dangling from the wood. And the trunks of the trees acted like mirrors, seeing everything within their vision. As he stood there he could make out figures within the mirrors of ice. There was a man with long white hair and red lines on his face, another man with a horizontal scar over his nose, a blonde-haired girl whose hair was tied in a ponytail, two people wearing hideous green jumpsuits and had large eyebrows where he originally thought they were caterpillars, a man with red eyes and wearing a black coat with red clouds, a red-haired boy with a tattoo of love on his forehead, and a busty blonde-haired woman. They all appeared in the mirrors looking at him with dead eyes. And he stared back with as much ferocity. He then began to traverse through the blizzard, walking by the trees. As a result the wind seemed to push against him as if trying to stop him from moving. But he fought through and endured the blistering frost, eviscerated his blood, freezing it, but he trekked on through the frozen storm. He walked for what seemed like hours until he came upon a unique tree. Unlike the rest of the trees in the cold forest, this one wasn't frozen over. Its bark and leaves looked more crystalline than frozen. The leaves seemed to droop down from the branches, appearing as if it was a painting or a chandelier. He stood before the tree and inspected its form. Then he saw images within the tree of him and people who appeared to be his friends. And more images of him greeting people and wearing robes that looked familiar to him. And finally, as if the tree had a will of its own, its branches and leaves started to move together, forming a crystal mirror. And he saw her again, the pink-haired woman with the blonde-haired baby and a man with blonde hair who he assumed was himself. And yet this feeling of melancholy washed over him. He kept staring at the mirror for a minute or two before it shattered into pieces, surprising him. When he turned his back towards the tree he noticed that all the other trees were fracturing as well, before like the crystal shattered. And then a mighty gust of wind that forced him to shield his eyes approached. It blew away any remnants of the blizzard and the snow, leaving him standing on a field of ice as if he was standing on a rimed ocean. When he looked down into the ice he saw something that made his breath hitch. It was a blonde-haired man, wearing the same clothing. However, there was something different about him. He looked older than the other blonde. His eyes were more narrow and he had a noticeable jawline along with a more narrow face. It felt like the original blonde was looking at an older version of himself. But there was one big difference between the two. This man's eyes were dull and lifeless even behind the valiant red. It's as if he was looking into the eyes of a dead man. Someone who died but still lived. "Just accept me," spoke the older blonde, however his voice was dark and deep. It sounded like the Kyuubi's. "I will erase everything that causes you pain. I will destroy everything that you hate in this world, entrust your heart to me." The original blonde's feet began to crack and splinter. The ice couldn't handle the weight of the younger blonde and it collapsed upon itself. The younger found himself drifting within an ocean. Everywhere he looked he saw darkness but no light, not a spark. He found the older man hovering above him. The younger blonde's back collided with the seabed and the older held the younger by the throat with a vice-like grip and stood over him like a predator who had caught their prey. "What's the matter? Why do you hesitate?" asked the older blonde with an evil chuckle. Had a dark smirk. The younger found it hard to breathe from all the water entering his lungs and the crushing grip of the older. "We need each other, you need my power, without me you can't do anything, nothing at all. Now who do you wish to kill?" asked the older with the voice of the Kyuubi and the dark smirk. "Will be the ones who wronged you. The ones who always underestimated you. The ones who kept everything from you. The ones you loved. Or the ones who denied you everything you deserved," tempted the older blonde with his dark voice and insidious smirk. The younger found himself drawn to the older as if wanting to accept the power that he offered. "Yes, you understand now. With our prodigious vision and a chakra more ominous and sinister than his own, we will shape the world as he has always wanted to," continued the older man. "Just give me your heart," whispered the older man. He then placed the palm of his hand against his younger counterpart's forehead. "Finally," hissed the older. Naruto woke up within his hotel room. He noted that he was alone and that night had fully crept over Kirigakure. He was wearing his black armor except his arms armor and coat. He never felt safe while sleeping except for in front of Madara. So he instead wore his armor. He had just had another night terror and it was the same way he had experienced 2 nights ago. Why was this happening to him? He felt himself grab the sword and kill the boy and yet he also felt his throat being crushed. Just what did this mean? His shinobi senses then kicked and he felt some chakra signatures outside his hotel room. But before he could react to anything a canister burst through a window in his room. Then the canister started excreting yellow gas. And when he breathed it in it strangely smelled like lavender. But he realized something was wrong. Naruto started having trouble breathing and molding his chakra. He dropped to his knees on the floor and tried to mold some chakra to escape but his control was rapidly fluctuating and he couldn't focus. Suddenly the door to his room burst open revealing 3 men wearing brown flak jackets and gas masks walked in carrying kunous. "There you are. Yokai no Ryu, Dragon of the Night Wind," said one of the intruders. Naruto through the gas was able to make out the symbol of Uegakure on their hitaites. Another Iwanin took out a katana and ran straight toward Ryu intent on killing. Ryu, knowing he didn't have much time to counter-attack, focused a large amount of chakra into his right eye while also trying to stave off the effects of the gas. Instantly the black scythe-like shuriken with a red pinwheel around the pupil appeared in Naruto's right eye. And he thought the name of the jutsu he was going to use. Kami Yonaneo. Just before the Iwanin could deliver the blow something blocked his katana.